Welcome to episode 195. Wow, we're approaching 200 episodes. Beats and Eats here, joined today by ESPN Radio Personality, CLNS Radio Personality, a sports guy in occupation, however, a real enthusiast and follower of politics. That's Patrick Gilroy. He'll be joining us to talk. We're going to do a deep dive into the Donald Trump blurring the lines of politics, news, and entertainment, which should be fun. Just a reminder, this episode of Beats and Eats is powered by Blue Apron. 3 free meals, free shipping. BlueApron.com/Beats&Eats.
Live from the virtual lounge in cyberspace, it's Beats and Eats. A happy hour for the mind, featuring the best in conversation and pop culture. Food, music, movies, comedy, you name it. And you'll never know who'll be dropping by to pay us a visit. And what would a show be without a host? Hey, we've got two, Ty Ray and Nick Gelso.
So joined now by Patrick Gilroy, sports journalist, sports broadcaster, also avid political follower. Patrick, welcome to Beats and Eats. You're making the rounds on CLNS Radio today. I heard you earlier on Celtic Stuff Live. You're on the post-game show. Now you're getting away from sports, and we're going to talk a little politics here today.
It's time for a little bit of a change, right, Nick? We got to do something a little bit different today.
Yeah, man. Monday, start the week off new, and let me start off by asking you the dreaded question. It's like, you just get done with a hard work week. You sit down at the bar for happy hour at 5 p.m. You're taking your first sip out of that martini you've been craving all day long, and the jackass sitting next to you turns, who you don't even know, and says, "So who did you vote for?" It's like the question from hell. So let me ask you, Pat, as I sip this martini at 6 a.m., who did you vote for?
Look, I'm a lifelong liberal. I voted for Hillary. Do I think she's a criminal? Yep. Do I think that we could have done a lot better? Of course. Could I vote against my conscience and the way that I was raised? I couldn't. Not for Donald Trump. If the Republicans had given us somebody with a little bit of class, a little bit of dignity, this was the year, this was the time that I was willing to sort of walk away from my party, at least temporarily. But considering the two options that we had, I had to go with what I've always done, and that's stay left.
Such a lethal question today in today's environment, isn't it? How is it in your house? Are you one of those houses that are completely split up by politics, or were you all on the Hillary train?
No, we are. I'm a lifelong New Englander. I married a woman who had just moved here 3 months prior from the deep south. When I go visit her in-laws, there may or may not be a Confederate flag hanging somewhere in the general neighborhood. I mean, it's a different lifestyle, right? So,
right.
And I'll tell you what, she leans as right as possible. And it was cute and it was fun 12 years ago when we were younger. Our differences are what brought us together. But as the culture in our country has gotten more tumultuous over the course of the last decade, it creates a problem in our house. And we've got this general rule, no posting on Facebook about political stuff, no posting on Twitter about political stuff, because if I post something about Hillary, she's going to get angry. Mm-hmm. And her family and friends will then react to what I'm saying, and vice versa. So we do make an effort to sort of stay away from it, but it's such a part of our lives. It's not only sports, it's not only politics, it's not only pop culture. It crosses every barrier. So it's almost impossible to stay away from it, Nick.
We're talking with Patrick Gilroy about the presidential election and our new president going to be inaugurated on Friday this week, just 5 days away, Washington, D.C. I can't believe I'm saying it. Can you believe you're saying it yet? Donald Trump is the 45th president of the United States.
No, I can't believe it. And when I think about it, I do throw up in my mouth a little bit. I thought and I hoped, and this is what I said to my wife after it was official and he won this thing, was that hopefully he'll become more presidential now. But maybe before it was an act. And now that he's won, at least he'll have the right people around him, giving him advice, telling him what to say, what to do, making him present himself as presidential. And rather than doing that, here we are. We've got thousands of people marching across this country, upset that there's a possibility that 20 million Americans could lose health care. And he's tweeting about Saturday Night Live this week again for the fourth consecutive week. It doesn't end with this guy.
Yeah, I think it's a great segue because the topic of this podcast is kind of blurring the lines between news, politics, and entertainment, even sports, which is great to have you here, Patrick, lifelong ESPN New Hampshire guy. You've worked at WEEI, all over sports radio up in New England, which is very liberal. So not surprising to hear you say that you're a liberal. And it looks as though this is the current state of how our president will be reacting with us, the voters, but not only us, with foreign leaders too. Twitter has become, my God, a communication device for our president. I never ever, let's put it this way, there are times when I hear Donald Trump, some of the things he has to say, or even the people who are representing him, and I think, wow, that makes sense. But undoubtedly, within 2 hours, he's sending out a tweet that's absolutely bizarre. And go ahead.
Well, when you look at him and you look at the things that he says, the things that he does, it's clear that occasionally, specifically the last 3 weeks before the election, he really reeled it back in. He saw that Hillary was vulnerable, and he went out there and he delivered some incredible speeches. And those speeches were full of, there was meat on those bones. He was tempered. He was somewhat presidential. Long gone was the guy that sort of got famous or made his bones on the trail stumping the last 12 months, that was saying, lock her up and all the crazy stuff that he said and went on. He put that to bed for the final couple of weeks leading up to the election. And I thought to myself, okay, maybe this is the guy, and let's give him a chance, because I expected my Republican wife to give President Barack Obama a chance. So now it's my turn. Let me give President Donald Trump a chance. But rather than continuing along those lines and listening to his advisors, he's reverted back to this guy that literally,
he's emboldened.
President-elect. He got into a Twitter war last week with Arnold Schwarzenegger about the ratings on The Apprentice. That's all you need to hear right there.
And he's emboldened. He is emboldened. And I mean, you and I are products of the 80s, and there were always grumblings back then about Donald Trump running for office, and he'd always kind of turn it down. I've been really thinking about, believe it or not, Back to the Future 2, when Biff is trying to go and get the sports almanac.
I know where you're going with this, and now are you going to talk about Biff's alternative reality there, where he's got the casino tower? It's spot on. This is spot on. That is Donald Trump, and this is the world that we are living in.
What does it mean now for the future? I mean, where are we going to be? And now you're talking here to two sports guys, right? So we're not making any bold predictions or have any inside information, but where are we going to be 1 year from now? Is Mike Pence going to be our president? Is Donald Trump going? Is what he's doing impeachable? And he hasn't even taken office yet.
Let's take a page out of sports, and let's just say that it's more probable than not that Mike Pence will be our next president sometime in the next 12 months. There is no way that this guy will be able to sort of walk the line that needs to be walked in order to stay in the White House.
No way. I don't see how it's possible. I mean, he literally cannot go a day. Pat, there's an amazing, we're both Twitter guys, there's an amazing handle you have to follow. It's called @MatureTrumpTweets, @MatureTrump TWTS. Follow it. This person who runs this account, dude, I laugh out loud at this stuff. He takes every single one of Trump's tweets and art tweets them and makes them presidential. So, like, for instance, here's what Trump tweeted on yesterday. NBC News is bad, but Saturday Night Live is the worst of NBC. Not funny, cast is terrible, always a complete hit job, really bad television. So this presidential Trump RTs this, retweets this, and makes it presidential. And here's what he says. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. NBC, somebody else, or Alec Baldwin, come share the stage with me at the inauguration party. The skit of me debating myself, I bet I win. Funny stuff. So he takes all the tweets that Donald says, which are completely bizarre, retweets them, and makes them presidential. It's all day long. I literally, like, I'm in the sports world, right? I don't subscribe to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's tweets. I don't subscribe to Isaiah Thomas's tweets, but I have subscribed to this presidential Trump tweets because every time it goes off, I laugh out loud.
Because if you can take the seriousness away from this conversation for a moment, this is just the gift that keeps on giving, Nick. You're a guy that's always looking for content. You're a guy that's always looking for something new, something fresh, because you and what you do crosses over between sports and politics and pop culture. That's your job. That is what you do. And this guy is going to provide you content for as long as he is in the White House.
No question about it. No question about it. So here's another kind of, I guess, scenario that's been interesting as we're deep diving into this Donald Trump blurring the lines between entertainment news and politics, celebrity. I'd be watching during the election season, be watching the early parts of the NBA season, right, Patrick? And we're covering that, so it's our duty to watch it. And I would often, if the Celtics were losing or playing, it was a boring game, I'd find myself switching over to CNN, MSNBC, or Fox to watch the political or the presidential election with the same kind of feelings that I was watching sports with, like as if I'm watching the presidential election like it's a sporting event and there's entertainment involved in it, and it's reality TV, and I'm hooked and I'm annoyed at the same time. It's like that toothache that you have to keep pressing because it hurts.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm so glad you said this, because it was the very beginning of the NBA season, and I don't know if I was doing the show here or if I was doing it on ESPN or EI or somewhere else, but I opened the show making a comment based on what was said after I think it was the second debate, because I was watching on Fox News, and they called the post-debate show the post-game show. And not the post-debate show. It was the post-game show.
And it is.
And it is, because this is exactly what we like about sports. We like the drama about sports. We like there being two head-to-head heavyweight competitors that are going at it. And these guys, let's not forget how close the polls were. Even though it looked like Hillary Clinton was up 6-8 points at all times, if you take the margin of error, the fine print on the bottom of every screen of every poll, and you put that in Donald Trump's favor, this thing has been relatively close all for the last 18 months. And you take that, and this becomes very much a sporting-like event. And when Fox called it the post-game show, that's when it really clicked in my head that when you look at the NFL ratings, Nick, there's a reason why they were down. And you can blame a lot of it on Roger Goodell. You can blame a lot of it on oversaturation. But a lot of it was people were getting that same fix that they get by watching an NFL game, watching politics.
No question. And Donald Trump seized every moment of that. I mean, anytime you could hear about remember early on, the debates were scheduled and actually ran simultaneous to, in a lot of ways, Sunday Night Football. And Trump was pissed off early on. But then when he realized that the ratings were trumping, no pun intended, Sunday night or Monday Night Football, he was all for it because, again, he has done well in that regard, bringing the masses to at least pay attention to politics. We may not be paying attention to the most significant or substantial information coming from Donald Trump, but the world is focused and fixated on politics right now, more than sports, more than anything, I think.
But and this goes back to the old expression, people always slow down to watch a car accident. This car accident has been going on for 18 months, and it's going to go on for the next 4 years. And that's part of it that's not funny. It's that if Donald Trump had been a fly-by-night candidate, somebody that sort of surged in the ratings, surged in the polls, and then we all sort of put our heads, screwed him back on straight, and Donald Trump went away, that would have been one thing. But this is not fake. This continues to get more and more I guess it gets more and more real every single day. And here we are on Monday. The inauguration is on Friday. And usually when you've got an inauguration, you can look forward to some of
the nationalism goes up.
Yeah. Some of Hollywood's biggest celebrities are there. The biggest bands in the world are there. And I believe I read over the weekend that he wanted Bruce Springsteen, but instead he's got a cover band. I mean, this is just, it gets better and better by the moment.
But his supporters are kind of emboldened by Hollywood turning their back on him.
Sure they are. But his supporters and the diehard supporters, I feel like at some point in the next 12 to 18 months, there's got to be a come to Jesus moment for these guys where they can't be this clouded, this blinded for the next 4 years. They just can't. Nothing of substance has come from the mouth of Donald Trump yet. And that's where it gets troubling. This guy is arguably the most important figure on the planet. He's in charge of our military. He's in charge of our nuclear weapons. He's in charge of world freaking peace. Because if the U.S. alienates the United Nations, or if the U.S. does something that puts the United Nations off a little bit, we could have a big problem on our hands. He's not the type of guy that I think, anyways, that other world leaders are going to run to support. He doesn't galvanize the masses. There's something about him that is very put offish, and I think that other world leaders are going to find themselves taking a little bit of joy, taking a little bit of pleasure in one-upping this guy because of his ego. There was no better accomplishment in the NBA, bring it back to the NBA, than when Michael Jordan was at his very best, than him getting shut down on some given night, or a team going into Chicago that had no business winning, stealing one away from Michael Jordan, because he got everybody's best game in and game out. A game against the Charlotte Hornets, that was their NBA Finals when they were playing Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. I think it's the same thing here. Other world leaders are going to look to take an opportunity to steal the spotlight from this guy, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of pushback. It really, when I think about it in terms of what could happen here in the next 4 years, and I don't like to go down this road because it's a dark tunnel, in my opinion. I don't want to go down this road too much. It's not good for my mental health, Nick, but I tell you what, I am legitimately worried for my children. I'm legitimately worried for this country. It is my hope that somehow, some way, we've just got a 4-year period of general world peace, and this guy's not allowed to screw it up too much.
Now, early on, I could even put myself into this category. You know, when you're in the primaries and there's 17 Republican candidates, I'm going to root for Donald Trump because he's entertaining and it doesn't really matter. And I think there became a point where his core followers realized this guy may actually win. And many of them aren't turning away just yet. But it was fun, and it was entertaining early in the summer of 2015 or whatever when it first started. But as this has gained steam, I think that the world of, the United States, those who voted for him said, holy crap, this guy might actually win. And everybody describes him as two different people. You know, there's the Donald Trump on Twitter, the entertainer, that's the shock jock, the shock value. And then there's the negotiator, the person that actually, will sit down and have a conversation with other people. And supposedly he's very thoughtful and well-spoken, and not this person I'm staring right now at his Twitter timeline, which really resembles a student council president more so than a president of the United States. I mean, this stuff is just crazy.
It is, but when you talk about Donald Trump and you talk about the two different versions of who this guy is, Nick, sure, I'm absolutely with you. The guy has been very successful. Forget about the fact that there was multiple bankruptcies and all the businesses that went bad for him over the years. There's been a lot more good than bad. We would all like to have Donald Trump's success, Donald Trump's money, and I have no doubt in my mind that when it comes to negotiating real estate deals or tax deals, whatever it may be, that this guy's very good at what he does. He knows those businesses inside and out. And that's one thing that I tell, let's just bring it to everyday life. I tell my salespeople, I tell my sales team that in order for you guys to sell our product better than anybody else, you need to know your product better than anybody else. It needs to be something that you know intimately inside and out for you to go out there and effectively sell it. Donald Trump knows real estate inside and out. My worry is Donald Trump is going to sit down to negotiate and be your typical sales guy, your used car salesman, not have his homework done, not understand what's in play when it comes to other countries, their armed forces, our trade deals with other countries, the United Nations. He may not have his facts together. And that's what I worry about, because when he sits down at this negotiating table, he's not going to be able to BS his way out of it. He's not going to be able to be that great salesman and sort of pull the wool over the eyes of these other world leaders. That's not a possibility. So do I have confidence that Donald Trump is doing his homework as we speak to prepare himself to sit at that negotiating table? I would like to think that he's doing that, and I would like to think that he's surrounded by people or surrounding himself with people that are giving him a quick education on other world leaders, on our trade deals, on what's good and what's bad and what can be renegotiated. But I'm not sure he's doing that, because his Twitter timeline tells me something completely different.
I'm here with Patrick Gilroy, ESPN New Hampshire, CLNS Radio. We're talking deep dive on Donald Trump blurring the lines between politics, news, and entertainment. Let's take a quick programming break to pay the bills. We'll be right back.
Beats and Eats will return after this word from our sponsor.
Did you know that Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country? Blue Apron's mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. Achieving this by supporting a more sustainable food system and setting the highest standards for ingredients and building a community of home chefs. Home chefs means cooking together, which means greater family bonds. Personally, I look forward to Fridays when I get home after a long day of working and see a box of fresh ingredients sitting on my front porch, perfectly chilled, under the perfect temperature. Produce comes in impeccable, the proteins are delicious, and the recipes are fun. I'm so looking forward to January and February because I know I'm going to be getting spicy shrimp and Korean rice cakes with cabbage, pork chops and garlic piccata with scallions, rice, and spinach, mushroom and chipotle pepper enchiladas with lime and sour cream. How can you ask for more? You don't have to. Blue Apron is free to you. You'll get 3 free meals and free shipping. All you have to do is go to blueapron.com/beatsandeats. There you'll get 3 free meals and free shipping. That's blueapron.com/beatsandeats.
This is Bob Trum, and you're listening to Beats and Eats, and it's a lot of fun to listen to.
All right, Patrick, here we are coming out of the break. We're wrapping this up. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and as of 2 days ago, Congressman John Lewis taking jabs at Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, instead of taking the high road on Martin Luther King weekend, fights back. Congressman John Lewis should finally focus on the burning and crime-infested inner cities of the U.S. I can use all the help I can get. He also insinuated in a tweet that was deleted that Lewis he was more talk than action as a politician. I think we could all disagree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, when you talk about John Lewis and the things that he's accomplished in his career, I'm just not sure that he's the right guy for Donald Trump to go after 4 or 5 days ahead of the inauguration. It's a bad look. And that's what surprises me sometimes.
But is it a bad look for Lewis?
No, it's not a bad look for Lewis. I don't think so. I think that Lewis is standing up for himself. He feels a bit attacked, and he's standing up for himself. And again, Donald Trump is a bully, and he's made himself famous by being that bully. You saw it the other day when he had his press conference, and he's shouting down the CNN reporter and the BuzzFeed reporter, and he's the guy with the loudest voice in the room wins. Is how he sort of played that press conference. That's how he plays Twitter. That's
playing devil's advocate here, Pat. Not to cut you off, but playing devil's advocate. We've seen Barack Obama do similar with Fox News.
Yeah, he has, but it's not the same. It's similar.
How is it not the same?
Because Barack Obama, there's something about the delivery of somebody.
Okay, now we're talking about style points.
Absolutely we are, because it's important. Don't forget, the president is as much a figurehead as anything else, Nick. So yeah, style points matter, delivery matters, tone matters when you're talking about the president of the United States of America. It absolutely does. And that's why a guy like Barack Obama is able to be a controversial figure, somebody that's very divisive, but he's also somebody that can get into a room and he garners the respect of those in that room, whether they're Republican, whether they're Democrat, because at least for that moment, he is treating that party in that room with a modicum of respect. So yeah, style points matter. And when you get up there and you're all gruff in the manner that Donald Trump was, and you're very loud, very disrespectful in the manner that Donald Trump was, all that does is further divide this country. His supporters love it, that he played to his base that day. But the guys like me that look at him and say, really, is this the guy that I'm going to rely on to unite this country, to unite the world? That guy, he can't even unite the press corps or try to unite the press corps. So
the press corps doesn't want to be united, though.
They don't want to be united, but they do want to be heard. And there's nothing wrong. And if he doesn't want to take the question, that's fine. That's fine. But you don't need to continue to degrade and yell. It just doesn't get anybody anywhere. It's a bad look. And I'm not going to be the guy that says, oh, my children were watching, and I don't want my children to behave like that. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to say this. Again, when you're not only the most important political figure in the world, but arguably you are the largest figurehead in the world as well, I believe that there's a responsibility there, especially for a guy like Donald Trump, who's not an idiot. He knows how divisive this election was. Donald Trump is very aware that he lost the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes. So why is he doing himself no favors and continuing to be this guy? It's not working when his main goal right now, his one singular goal should be to unite this country. And when he performs like that, or when he gets into a beef with John Lewis in the manner in which he has, to me, that's not doing your best to unite the country, which should be his number one focus right now.
I keep asking myself, what is he diverting our attention from? Because there's so much ridiculousness in some of these attacks that he goes on, especially the Lewis one. He could have just left that alone. You almost think that he's diverting the news cycle away from Russia or away from something else that may be coming out in the next news cycle or whatever. And it's very the Donald Trump strategy is an enigma. I mean, because you just don't know what direction he's coming from, and it's not stable. So let me ask you this before we wrap up. Today, Martin Luther King Day. What does Martin Luther King Day mean to you, Mr. Gilroy?
It's a great question. I don't think I've been asked that question since elementary school.
And you know, it's one that we as Caucasian people don't get the privilege of answering often enough, because it should have a sentimental feeling in all Americans' hearts, regardless of race.
Look, I believe that at some point, maybe when I'm a grandfather, we'll finally start to live in a country that's colorblind. But for people to take a look around and think that, you know, racism has gone away, it's just not true. It's people are still judged based on their race. People are still judged based on their heritage, and that's a shame. But this country's come a long way. Go back 50 years, go back 100 years, and look at the rights that have been earned by people of color. And when you look at our generation, Nick, it's interesting because it's the first generation where I believe I've got two buddies that have married interracially, and it doesn't mean a thing to me, where maybe my grandfather would have felt different. So it means a lot. Martin Luther King means a lot to me because it's really exciting to have grown up in a time where the worldview really is changing, and the view in our lives is changing, and the view at our dinner table is changing. And now the world that my children are growing up in, I believe that they'll be the first generation to be nearly colorblind, and we might be 2 generations away from it finally being something that is just an ugly part of our past that we'll look back on in history books and say, wow, I can't believe the world was like that once upon a time.
He's Patrick Gilroy from ESPN New Hampshire, CLNS Radio. He's Gilroy on ESPN on Twitter. And I want to thank him for joining us early this morning on Martin Luther King Day. Patrick, thanks for joining Beats and Eats, filling in for Ty Ray.
I had a lot of fun this morning, man. Let's do this again real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pat. Well, today was a lot of fun. I want to thank Patrick Gilroy for joining us. Again, you could follow him at Gilroy on ESPN. That's on Twitter. I'm at CLNS_Nick. Ty Ray is at Coog88. And the Beats and Eats Twitter handle remains tricky. It's Beat, the letter, and Eats. I want to thank our show sponsor, which is BlueApron.com. Don't forget, you can get 3 free meals and free shipping from Blue Apron by going to BlueApron.com/BeatsAndEats. I'm Nick Gelso, going solo today, filling in for Ty Ray. And as for now, until we meet again, the lounge is closed.
The virtual lounge is now closed. Hey, Mr. Bartender, that's me, Scott Mitchell. Until next week, hey, stay cool.